Hello, and welcome to Nuts and Bolts of Setting Up Your Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine Practice. My name is Jeremy Anderson Sloan, and I'm the AVP for Institutional Advancement at University of Western States. Thank you for being with us. Today, we're going to talk about nuts and bolts of setting up your practice, and we have three panelists with us, and I would like each of them to introduce themselves to you. So we'll start with Megan Barnett.
Hi, I'm Megan Barnett. I'm a certified nutrition specialist and graduate of UWS. I currently own a functional medicine, co-own a functional medicine clinic in Portland, Oregon with Jeff Grimm called Bio Lounge. And I most of my career has been spent here post-graduation. I was really fortunate in my last term at UWS to be able to do clinical rounds with a physician at a stem cell and longevity clinic. And it was in that period of time that I met Jeff Grimm. And I actually had a little break. I moved out of the country right after graduating from the program in 2017 and sort of freaked out that I wasn't practicing and why did I decide to do this right after getting this awesome degree and feeling really motivated and excited. But that was a lucky situation in that in my panic around not working, I started writing functional medicine-based blogs and then was hired to write books. And so while I lived overseas for a year, I ended up writing 6 books as a ghostwriter for functional medicine doctors in the States. And it was great to have an opportunity to really hone in on current research around 6 different topics that were relevant to what I wanted to be doing. And when we moved back to Portland, I reached out to Jeff because he was doing as a nurse practitioner a lot of the things that I was interested in. And he had left that clinic and started his own clinic, Bio Lounge. And I came on to work with him as a contractor and just see some of the patients that had a need for nutritional support. And over the period of the last 5 years, we've grown and built the clinic, and I bought half of the clinic. I became a 50% owner around a year ago, so we could continue to expand our services. So that's been my path, and it's been very fortunate and exciting and fun. And now we have one other functional nutritionist that works with me here, 2 naturopaths, and then Jeff as a nurse practitioner. And we get to focus on a lot of the current chronic disease and mystery disease issues that we see in our country today. So that's my path.
Thank you, Megan, for being with us. Liz?
Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Abel. I am a CNS, and I am a co-founder of a supervision program for CNS candidates called Clinicians Incubator. I'm also co-founder of the country's first national tele health insurance-based company that offers services really focusing on mental health, including eating behaviors and eating disorders, GI issues, and endocrine and reproductive hormones. That's called Nutrition Hive. I'm also adjunct faculty at MUIH, which is where I have my degree from, and I teach advanced labs toward the end of the program there. I personally live out in Delaware, even though I'm 100% virtual and see clients and folks all over the country and all over the world. And so a little bit just about how I got into nutrition and into this place, a little bit more about my background, because I am a second career nutritionist. And I also hold a communications degree in a master's communications degree. And I worked in corporate settings for more than 18 years. And then, like so many of us, my own health issues started to bubble up. I went to yoga teacher training, I went to IIN, and eventually in a quest to try and get myself better, enrolled back then in the nutrition program. And my health coaching business grew organically, and I was able to transition that into a medical nutrition therapy business. And then I was lucky enough to meet a silent partner. He had 7 chiropractic offices around the state, and we opened up Delaware's first integrative center back in 2018 and 2019. And sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. We had such tremendous success, I'll call it, which also looked like seeing over 220 new patients in one single year and led to very rapid burnout. So then I scaled back and went back into private practice, just me, myself, and I in 2020. And then COVID hit. And then telehealth took off, and that really then shaped now the next iteration I'm now in, which is the Nutrition Hive business, which is across the country. So a couple of different steps along the way. You think you have plans and ideas, and it shows you what it wants to do.
And thank you, Liz. Thanks for being with us. Kathy?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Harrington. I am owner of a private clinical nutrition practice, and I also teach for the University of Western States. I teach the Nutrition Practice Strategies course, and I have also been working as a course facilitator since I graduated in 2015. My story and how I got here is over 30 years ago. I started working in a chiropractic office while I was getting my physical therapy degree. And that experience, that chiropractor, had a profound impact on me. I heard things, I learned things about the body's ability to heal itself, what tools it needs to heal itself, and it really changed the trajectory of my life in healthcare, my professional life in healthcare. That chiropractor also had a nutritionist who came into his practice and saw some of his patients who were interested. And so I would set up the appointments, right? And I had a lot of contact with the nutritionist. And so she also had a profound effect on me. And then when my daughter was sick and doctors were not able to help her, I contacted that nutritionist, and her recommendations are what helped my daughter. So I was pretty much hooked from that time on. And I always worked in natural healthcare and chiropractic settings. I managed a very busy, high volume practice. And I was coaching people on purification programs and doing a lot of herbal recommendations for people. And at that time, I always worked with the top business consultants in the country. And so I have a lot of experience on the business end of what it takes to run a successful practice. And then when my husband wanted to transition his chiropractic practice into a holistic nutrition, functional medicine practice, I coached him in how to do that. And he would always say to me, "Oh my gosh, you're so good at this. I'm paying this business consultant, and what they're saying is not it. And what you're telling me to do is actually really working to help me grow my practice." And that just gave me a lot of confidence that I knew what I was doing with running a practice. And I felt confident to be able to open my own private practice. And that's when I decided to get my master's, went online, did some research, and found the University of Western States, and graduated, like I said, in 2015. And so it's been 8 years. It will be 8 years in April 2015 that I've been running my own private practice, and now just working every day to help people have the same opportunity that I had to really improve their health and make a lasting change in their life and in their health.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, welcome all of you. Thanks for being with us today. So we're going to talk about setting up the nuts and bolts of a practice and kind of the main pieces that kind of logistically we think about. And so the first one we want to talk about is deciding whether you're going to accept insurance as a practitioner or if you're going to stay cash-based. And so Liz, will you tell us a little bit about how you made the decision to accept insurance and what that looks like for your practice?
Right. Thank you. It's a great question to ask. Obviously, in some states where licensing isn't available, it's usually not a question to bother to ask, but there are a lot of states where being credentialed on an insurance panel may be interesting. For work, we work a lot with disordered eating disorders specifically. Those types of diagnoses are often covered under insurance. Cardiometabolic issues are often covered under insurance. Some of the other things like Lyme disease are not covered under insurance as it relates to nutrition counseling. So you'd also want to think about, what is your sweet spot? What is your client niche that you think you might want to explore? And if you really love working with clients who are diabetic or have cardiometabolic issues, then insurance very well may be a good provider for that type of clientele for you. It is something some CNSs decide to go and tackle, how to figure out how to get credentialed with insurance panels and how to submit their insurance claims. I am of the opinion that your area of expertise as almost graduates is in helping clients feel better. It is not in figuring out the insurance. And so I would always also encourage you, if you're thinking about doing insurance, consider paying a professional to do it for you. And I know how terrifying that can be, because you're thinking, oh, I have to spend money for this and I have to spend money for this, and I don't have enough money coming in to do it. But this is the one area where you want to work with someone, if you choose to accept insurance, who knows how to do it to make sure that you get paid on a regular basis, and makes it painless for you. So there's a couple of considerations. Are you eligible? What kind of clientele do you want to work with?
Thank you. And then Megan, can you tell us a little bit about your practice and how you run as a cash-based practice?
Absolutely. So when my business partner decided to open his own space, one of the values within the mission statement was to offer healthcare unencumbered by all of the things that kind of hold us back in conventional healthcare. So we wanted to offer long visits where we typically spend 60 to 90 minutes with people. We wanted to be able to order testing and diagnostics without having to ask for permission from an insurance company. And we also wanted to provide a work-life balance for our providers, everybody that works here, where they could afford their lives without having to see 20 people a day, 5 days a week, because it's challenging. I think all of us can agree in functional medicine, it takes a lot of energy, emotional, psychological energy to provide the type of care we provide. So it can be limiting with regards to how many people you feel you can see in a week without feeling burnout. So for those reasons, he opted not to work with insurance companies, with the exception that we will run labs through insurance whenever we're able to. So if we have diagnostic codes from a medical provider, we are happy to use our patients' insurance for those diagnostic tests that are typically covered, CBC, CMPs, the sort of general labs. So we have set up very clear cash pricing for our patients, but we also have discounted cash prices for all of our labs and diagnostics. So we try to pass on affordable rates. We know that this does limit our patient population. The patient population that sees us can afford to see us. And what I will say about that, when I have a lot of friends and colleagues within all different scopes of medicine, when people make the decision to come see us, and they are spending money to do this, they're really ready to make change. Very few people come in ready to pay for a visit that aren't ready to hear what you're going to tell them, which is, oh, we're going to make lifestyle changes. We're not telling them to take a pill. We're like, and we're changing your diet, right? So it's a big deal. It's a big commitment for them. And I think because we do work outside of the insurance network, we have a high level of compliance because people are so financially invested in the steps that they're taking at this point in time. So that's, and on the other hand, I have insurance and I really like using my insurance, right? So I see all the sides of it, but for us, we've decided to stay in the cash-based model.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Kathy, you had talked about starting your practice about 8 years ago. And when you were starting, how did you make that choice?
Yeah, at that point, I knew it was going to be a cash-based practice. I think insurance has changed in the last 8 years, and it wasn't very common for insurance to pay for nutrition care at that point. And I knew what went on behind the scenes to collect insurance. And as Liz was saying, I totally agree. It is worth it to actually pay someone else to do it. You have to pay extra, you have to bill extra to cover your expenses of actually billing insurance. And so I just didn't want to get involved with that. If I could do it, if I could actually build a sustainable, really with a firm foundation cash practice, I wanted to at least try, and I did. I have done that, and I do still have a cash practice with a referral. I get a lot of word of mouth referrals. And Megan is right. When someone has some skin in the game, they're ready. They're more ready to make changes. And that is another reason why I wanted to have a cash-based practice.
Well, thank you all for that. As we're talking about kind of setting up our practice, there's some other roles that we might need to help us be a sustainable practice. So thinking about hiring and positions that you thought of when you were first getting started. Megan, can you tell us a little bit about what types of roles you have within your practice and what types of jobs you have available?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, as I said, Jeff is a nurse practitioner and I am a CNS. So we have, we began just he and I. And from there, I actually mentored a functional nutritionist that was still in school at UWS. And she was so incredible that I hired her to work with me when my calendar was a little too full. And I was really excited to be able to have another provider able to see our patients here. And she's still with us today, Ashley. From there, we have since hired 2 additional naturopaths. And again, that was based on filling the need of our patient population. Part of that was because we had more patients than we could see. And part of it was because they were asking for specialties. So we kept hearing, Jeff is a hormone expert. So he does a lot with women's health, but also men's health. But we kept hearing, we really want more care for our adolescents, for our young women, for fertility. What do you offer for pediatrics? And so we ended up finding an awesome naturopath that's able to provide those services. And then we had a lot of demand for cardiovascular. So we brought on an incredible cardiovascular specialist. When we are thinking about hiring, we're thinking about the mindset that we have, right? How do we look holistically? How are we integrating all of the science? We're very science-based. So we're looking at what's the newest evidence, what's going on, what can we really, what can we be providing for our patients that maybe their doctors aren't looking at outside of our clinic because they haven't seen the newest research, et cetera. But of course, to run a practice like this, we need office help for sure and clinical support. So we have an incredible clinical manager, and she does the daily function of our clinic. She makes sure that our scheduling and our billing is up to date, that we're OSHA compliant, that we, our employee manuals are up to date, our workers' comp is being managed. There's that whole world of running the business that is separate from seeing your patients. And as Jeff and I have grown in our different roles, he's definitely he manages the entire medical side, and I manage the business, the marketing, the human resources, business strategy, et cetera. So when I'm not seeing patients, that's what I'm doing. And when we are thinking about hiring, as we think about building out our clinical nutrition practice, because we can work anywhere and we see patients virtually all over the country, we actually have a clinical immersion program. Ashley and I built that to run people through a 12-week program that helps them bridge the gap between their education and clinical practice. So how do you take all this awesome stuff and actually practice clinically? And so when we're hiring, we typically will make sure that they've had that foundation of that 3-month program. And that's a CNS program as well, a supervision program as well.
Great, thank you. Liz, same question to you.
Yes, couldn't agree more with the person who runs the nuts and bolts of all of the invisible things that have to happen to make everything go smoothly is incredibly important. And then you have your team of clinical nutritionists. The other thing I'd suggest to some of the folks watching this video is one of the things I had when I did my had my integrative center is I had a CNS candidate directly under my supervision as well. And they had such a high touch with my clients. They were screening for prescription medication use and doing the research on what the contraindications were. They were maybe calling the client after, a week after they left with their supplement recommendations to make sure everything was feeling okay and going okay. That was that kind of touch point. And so there might be opportunities in clinics around your area if you're working to get your CNS hours, that might be an interesting way to make yourself useful to some of those clinics. But those would be, and your accountant, your fractional CFO, your bookkeeper, your lawyer, and all of the other people who they don't have to be direct hires, but that you're contracting out. So many folks make a practice run seamlessly.
Thank you, Liz. Kathy?
So just kind of dovetailing off of that, when you are a solo practitioner, one way you know you're ready to hire someone is when you are too busy to keep up with the demand, the calls, rescheduling, the questions that your current clients have, the books. And if all of that is just getting overwhelming and interfering with your opportunity to actually be working with the clients, then you kind of have to start to decide where you need help. And so hiring a bookkeeper is one of the best things I've done, honestly. They're not even someone in your clinic, but they're still someone that's helping you pick up the slack so that you can be your best, focusing on working with your clients. And then for me, again, being a solo practitioner, I have one staff person who pretty much runs the front desk. But when you're a small practice and you will have one staff person, that person really does have to be willing, or maybe even more importantly, able to wear many hats. And so finding the right person is so important. It's better to wait and be a little busy and not hire the wrong person. You have to hire someone, that urgency. You can end up with the wrong person, but to really wait and make sure the person is a good fit. And some things to look for would be their ability to convey their ability to convey warmth, positivity, their communication skills. You can teach someone to use your computer software and your scheduling system and stuff like that. But some of these, real parts of their personality that would influence how they interact with your clients, that's the type of thing you really want to look for when you're hiring anyone, an assistant, a front desk assistant, another clinician who's going to be working with your clients as well.
Thank you. I think we got some really great nuggets of wisdom from each of you for that. So thank you. So we're going to move on now to patient compliance. And one piece of that we had chatted about was around motivational interviewing. And so Kathy, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk a little bit about your work in motivational interviewing and how you think this helps in ensuring patient compliance with their patient health plan?
Yeah, I love this topic. So I teach motivational interviewing in the Nutrition Practice Strategies course, and I've been doing so for very many years as I'm also working in real time with clients. And so it really has solidified this how to practice motivational interviewing, but also really shown me the value. We are counseling people and helping them, giving them strategies for not only dietary changes, but in the functional medicine model, lifestyle and behavior changes. And there's just a very interesting mix. There's a lot that comes along with people and their relationship to food, things they learned in their childhood. And so using some really skillful questioning, which is basically what motivational interviewing is, as a way to get the person to talk about their reasons for change. is so valuable. And when they are voicing and saying why they need to change or what benefits they will get if they make these changes, then they are more likely to make those changes because they're hearing themselves argue for change instead of just us telling them what to do. And the other part of it that I have found really, really valuable for myself in clinical practice is listening as part of motivational interviewing and really hearing what the person is saying. And one of the things is, what stage of change are they actually in? I'm sure all of us have experienced people come in, they're not really ready to make change, even though they may seem and talk a good talk initially. Maybe they came in because their spouse wanted them to, or their parent wanted them to. And so hearing from the client themselves, what's important to them and how ready they are for change really helps us know what we need to do, right? If someone isn't really ready for change, we can't just start throwing a lot of direction at them and a lot of meal plans and all these recommendations, but they may need to, go home and research what health benefits they'll get if they make those changes and try to start to learn for themselves reasons to make those change. And so hearing the stages of change talk is really important, because people may say things to you in answer to your questions that they think you want to hear, right? That may make you think they're in a stage of change, but when they're talking about more the desire or wanting to things, that's not really a readiness. That's really just the desire for it. Whereas if someone is saying, okay, I want this, and so, the week before they came in for their appointment, they already started to do things like, I haven't drank any wine at all for the last week. I've been packing my lunch all week. Now that person, just based on what they're saying, now we know that person is in action stage. They're already making some behavior changes on their own before they even come to see us. And then that is a really good way of knowing where someone is at in that whole continuum of change. And then we can really tailor our recommendations that's more appropriate for each individual client.
Thank you, Kathy. Megan, can you tell us a little about when you're doing an initial intake of a new client, how do you factor in assessing the outcomes and their ability to comply?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, as I said earlier, by the time people are sitting down with me, they have a readiness for two reasons. One, obviously, they've made the decision to come see me and to invest financially. However, we work with people that have a lot of painful symptoms. So one of the things that we talk about in an initial consultation is, what is it about your current health or your state of being that is getting in your way of the life you want to be living? What needs to change for you to feel like you are in your optimal health? Now, what is going to get in the way potentially if we have lifestyle changes that need to be applied in order to get to those goals? And we're very clear about what those symptoms are, what we're tracking, what needs to get better. And I always say to people, if you could wave the magic wand, what is it that would go away today for you to feel better, right? So we get very clear on that. Okay, now what's going to stand in your way? What is it about, what are the barriers that normally make it hard to make change? Do you have teenagers at home and they're constantly bringing junk in the house? Do you're out and about driving kids around until 10 p.m.? Do you have a spouse that's not supportive? What are those things? And okay, so let's just make sure that we have those outlined so we know what we're going to have to work with and try to navigate when we have new information. But I'll also say that our patients report back that when we have a set of labs or we have data points, we have something that's unique to them and it's on paper. And we as providers explain to them, this is what we see on paper. And this is what the evidence says. This is what we know in the research. This is what science is telling us. And our personal clinical experience is going to help you improve the symptom and improve the outcome in your labs, people with that education tend to be, and that personalized education tend to have a higher level of compliance because they know we're not talking about generalizations, we're talking about their unique health. And the last thing I'll say about it is, if I feel any hesitancy, and there's some level of hesitancy with most people when it comes to making big lifestyle changes, and we ask a lot of our patients, I typically say, are you comfortable doing this as an experiment for 2 weeks? Or are you comfortable doing this as an experiment for 30 days, depending on how severe their situation is? And can we just track it together over that period of time? And when it doesn't feel like a forever change, people have, they feel a little more comfortable, I think, with the big changes. And my experience is that once they start to feel physically better or mentally better, or they're sleeping, or their anxiety is, disappearing, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I know you said 2 weeks, but can I do it for longer? and so, they have to experience the shift in their own body to stick with it. So I try to be really clear about, short goals for that reason.
Great. Liz, I'm going to change my question a little bit to you. As someone who works in telehealth and works with people across the country, I know living in Portland, Oregon, that I can go down to a natural grocery store around the corner, but there might be some folks that don't have some of those near them. So how do you work with folks and work through compliance if they're living in, say, a rural area or somewhere where they don't have as much access?
Yeah, this is a really tough problem. It's sometimes you're right. We're not going to know what their grocery store looks like. We do have clinicians in lots of different places around the country. And so we might have to see if they're willing to go on like a scavenger hunt, see what they can find. And the reality is, if they're living in a place that doesn't have a lot of access to things, we are going to rely more on frozen food. We are going to rely on different things than some of the, really fun on-trend foods that are accessible to us at our local market. So it's about finding out and figuring out what is accessible to them, what have they tried, what haven't they tried, what's within their budget. And a lot of times it's just getting down to basics. And so that's how we figure it out.
Great. Well, thank you all. So part of working with patients and setting a new plan for them oftentimes might include working with some outside vendors. And so, Kathy, can you tell us a little bit about how you've made relationships with outside vendors, in particular, any specifically for supplement companies or nutraceutical companies, and how you work with them to provide access to your clients?
So when I first started my practice, I just contacted a few different companies that I knew I wanted to work with and opened an account. And then as soon as I opened an account with them, they assigned the rep for my area. And then that rep called on me, actually reached out to me. And, it's kind of interesting. Some reps, we just love when they come and we'll set aside time and we'll have lunch with them. And some, it doesn't really work out as well. It's kind of interesting. So I have found part of my business model is I do sell supplements in my office. And I am not loyal to one brand. I have a lot of different brands. I have a few products from different lines, really more loyal to my clients and finding the right product that actually is going to work for them with the quality ingredients and all of that. And so what I have found is it has been beneficial, even though I know there's, Elevate, there's Full Script, there's these different vendors that you can, or distributors that you can get a lot of supplements from. I have found it to be beneficial to still order directly from some of the main product lines. And it helps me keep a good relationship with the vendor, and they always keep me apprised of new products and information. And also they give me discounts. So I actually have a better a markup when I sell the supplement for that little bit of extra work. And actually my staff helps me do that. So it's not really a lot of extra work on my part. And it's been very beneficial for my practice since March 2020, and being able to be there as a resource for people and have supplements in stock that they were not able to get other places. And I'm sure we can all, attest to this, that it has been a thing to try to find supplements. There's been a lot of products back ordered, going in and out of stock over the last couple of years. And so I keep my finger on that. And I always have stuff in stock. So when people can't get it on Wellevate, they can't get it anywhere else, I have it for them. And that has really helped me keep a connection and be just another resource for my clients where I'm there for them.
Thank you, Kathy. Megan or Liz, do either of you have anything you'd like to add?
I can just say because we work with primarily local patients, but I would say maybe 20% of our patient population do reside in other states, especially for Ashley and I as the nutritionist. So we do have a mix of, we have definitely our supplements in our clinic, in our retail space. And we, just like Kathy, we are loyal to our patients. So we are looking at what the best supplements are from each line. And of course, we're looking at high quality brands that we have a lot of trust with, and we understand the science behind them and the quality control. But we do utilize FullScript, which is integrated through our EMR. So it's really nice that within the actual chart note, we can make a supplement recommendation, and then we can go into the medication portion of that, put in all of our recommendations, and it automatically goes through FullScript to the patient. So if they are in New York, then we have that ability to do that. And there's a profit margin built into that as well. It's not quite as strong as when you're selling supplements out of your clinical space, but it's not nothing either.
Thanks.
It is, just to emphasize, I still have clients from when I first started my practice are still buying their multivitamin and their fish oil. And so it is an important revenue stream to eventually, as you grow your practice, it will be very noteworthy. So when we talk about hiring your bookkeeper, that's where that money is going to come from, right? So it's not just only the face-to-face client time that that commission on your supplements is important in when you financially model your business.
Great. I think it's a great little nugget of information to know as well, is that there are some kind of generalized revenue streams that can come through from other ways. Great. Megan, you spoke earlier about working with different labs, and can you tell us kind of about how you connect with different lab companies and what that looks like for your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we have two primary lab companies that we work most closely with. We have a strong relationship with Quest, and they do offer us very lucrative cash prices that we get to pass on to our patient population. Upwards of, it looks like about 10% or less of what we would be billing out if we were billing insurance. So it's awesome to be able to offer that. However, Quest is primarily medical. So we do use them if we are going to bill insurance for labs. We use them if we have a Quest lab close by our patient, right? They can pop into the lab for their draw. We don't do phlebotomy in our clinic. However, because we work with patients in so many different places, and because we work with labs outside of your conventional medical labs, we have a very strong relationship with Vibrant America, Vibrant Wellness. And what we have, and I will say, we have other labs as well, stool tests, and we work with urine tests and everything. But when we're talking about our primary labs for phlebotomy, it's Quest and Vibrant. And what I have found to be beneficial about the relationship with Vibrant in many ways is they give us a rep, they give us a lab concierge, so we get a lot of back-end support from them. They allow us to create our own custom labs, so we build whatever we want to see in our panels. And from a nutritionist perspective, especially dealing with complex chronic disease and autoimmunity, our food sensitivity panels are very popular. We run a lot of them. And to be able to build out our custom food sensitivity panels has been really, really helpful for us. But in addition to that, you have stool testing and you have urine testing and you're looking at toxins and metals, et cetera, through Vibrant, and they will ship to anywhere and for the lab kits. And then they have phlebotomy clinics in most places throughout the US. What I have found is if they don't have a phlebotomy clinic nearby, if I speak with the local hospital or medical center, and I make that call myself, so I make sure there's nothing lost in translation, and I speak to the lab, typically they're willing to do a kit draw for us, which is great. So those are our two primary. And then, I'll just say Vibrant offers the ability for you to upcharge their labs. So there is a potential additional revenue stream there. There are a lot of providers I know that are making a lot of money upcharging the labs. And that is a personal decision about whether or not you want to do that, or if you just want to charge what they're charging you. And then I know that we are getting ready to add a testing page to our website where patients and non-patients can go in and they can order their own labs. So if they're curious about micronutrients, that will just be ordered through the website. And then Vibrant actually takes care of the back end of that for all the patient education and helping them know how to go A, B, C, D to getting to their results. So something to have as a tool in your pocket as you build a practice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Liz or Kathy, would you like to add anything?
I would just suggest to folks who are coming out of school, something else you might want to look at. There's two companies. I'm not advocating for either of them. There may be more by the time of this recording. One is called Avexia Diagnostic and one is called Rupa Health. And they are a middle person for giving you access, if you can open up an account through them, giving you access to different tests via different testing manufacturing. So you can, depending on which company you select, you might have access to ZRT, Genova, Precision Analytics, AKA Dutch. And so while I love having my account with an individual testing company like a Genova, because there is increased benefit for that, if you are just getting started, I think something to consider also is one of these other companies to see what all the other testing options are available. Because I remember when I first graduated, and I'm not a graduate of UWS, your program clearly covers off testing more than what my graduate program did. But I remember there being a lot of trying to figure out, is this an apple and is this an apple and are they like, or is this an orange, or and how does these compare and contrast, and how do I have access to them? And so a company like this, which they're relatively newer, could be interesting to explore.
And one more thing about Avexia, I also use Avexia. They partner with LabCorp. So the patient can go to a LabCorp facility for the blood draw, and you don't have to, have a phlebotomist coming into your office or get involved with trying to organize the phlebotomy part for the client.
Great. Well, thank you all for those responses about that. We're getting towards the end of our time together, and I just wanted to ask kind of a generalized question to each of you on what are some good resources or places that you go for resources to think about insurance or intake forms for patients or these lab partnerships and working with outside vendors. Is there anything that you would lead our students to as a good resource? And I'll start with Liz.
I don't know about the UWS. I'm assuming there's a UWS Facebook page. Love or hate Facebook, it still has a hold. I know the different groups that I'm membership of tend to be a really good crowdsourcing place. I wish I had a professional place. It sounds like Megan has an incredible program for the immersion program. We're mentors too at CNS internship. I think there's a lot of great programs as you transition from graduate school into your career. And so it's about talking with them, interviewing with them, and finding out maybe where you think where you might have some gaps and which program might be able to help you fill those gaps. That's probably a good place to start, is doing some of those informational interviews with the different programs and people.
I
Great
remember
tidbit.
for many years, I attended the Integrative Healthcare Symposium in New York City, and that was really beneficial as far as meeting with different vendors and just being able to see all the options of different vendors, whether it be labs and all the supplement companies. I have, of all the seminars that I've attended, that one has the largest vendor base. I mean, it's more than one floor in a huge hotel in Midtown Manhattan. But even so, just getting out there, getting to some seminars, networking with other professionals. Other seminars also have, the vendor hall where you can walk around and just see what's out there, meeting other students at some of these events and making some connections and finding out what they're doing. That is where I have gotten some of the best recommendations for mentors, and also have made some great vendor connections and gotten accounts with different vendors at some of those types of settings.
And I can add on to that and reiterate what both Kathy and Liz said. That there's not necessarily a playbook when you come out of a nutrition program for how to set everything up. And there's liability, and there's also just organization, because you want to be working with your clients and patients, and so it's a struggle to get all the back end. So I would really emphasize the importance of reaching out to your community. So as Liz said, she has Clinical Incubator, we have Clinical Immersion. Those are paid internship programs where we both give you, like, this is how you do it, right? You're going to get the resources. So you don't have to, it's not a mystery. But also, we're a pretty friendly group of people out here, and we really want nutritionists that are motivated to set up their practice to have the resources. I had no shame in calling other medical providers and calling other nutritionists and getting on the Facebook group for UWS and saying, like, can you guys send me your intake forms? I'm trying to figure out what I like, what I don't like, et cetera. We have in Portland a functional medicine group on email where people ask questions with regards to patients, and people are really willing to share resources. So I would advise looking around in your area to see if those groups exist. We even have a local CNS group of CNSs that are, and I know not everybody that's coming out of UWS already is a CNS, right? They're potentially working towards that. But the ANA and local CNS groups where, we've been through it, and many of us are really open and willing to mentor, take on interns, and make sure that our colleagues are supported.
Wonderful.
I think it's to not be afraid to ask the question. And I know a lot of times there's such this imposter syndrome when we graduate of who am I and how am I going to communicate? And can be paralyzed by that fear that we need to learn more. And just what we've just said, the community is so supportive. We want you all to be successful. We want this credential, if you choose to get it, to speak volumes and continue to. So yes, I think not being afraid to ask is a great gift, or something you can force yourself with some courage to do.
Yeah, your graduates can always call Ashley or I'm sure Liz, Kathy, and say, like, what's my next step, right? Like, we open our doors to those phone calls, and we just love to be able to say, go check this out, or this is where I failed and learned a lesson, et cetera. Like, there's a lot of stumbling in those first couple of years, I think.
What I teach students is, when you're first starting out, everything you do it on purpose. Set up a system. Decide right away, when you're not real busy, how you want it to flow when you are busy. Like, do it when you're not busy as if you are busy. So streamline your systems. And those are every little detail about your business, how you want people to find you online, what they're going to click on, how they're going to contact you, what phone number you're going to have out there, what hours you're going to be answering that phone, what you're going to do, what form you're going to begin filling out right when you answer a call, and begin answering questions of a potential new client. And then as you're doing that, you are developing your systems for your practice, and then you want to keep doing it the same way each time, so that when you hire a staff person, you teach them how to do it the same way. And those very simple little details actually become the systems of your practice. Not to say that if you start out doing it one way, it's not working, you can't change, but just to be, be a little mindful of that, be purposeful, don't be haphazard. Set your hours that you're going to be available to clients, how you're going to handle their questions and the calls coming in, and then, just follow that system each time. And you're on your way to developing solid business systems that will support your growth in your practice.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being with us today. This was great information for our students.